Hey there, APHUG team. This is Sanchez ready to go with our Chapter 5 language section, and this ties to our discussion of culture. Now, language is one of the most important aspects of culture. Very few things tie a group together quite like a common language. So for our terms, we'll define language as the ability to communicate with others orally and or in writing. And language can be both a unifying, bringing people together, or a dividing factor in nations. Here we go on the screen right now just to take a look, looking at kind of an equation. We're tying chapter 4, which you guys did your jigsaw activity. So we know sociofacts, which are the social expression of culture, whether it's political forms, the way we choose our government, or economic choices. Mentifacts, which again are value expression, so our religious, our philosophy. And then, of course, a cultural artifact is more tangible. It's more the material expression. So these are the things we can see. We think about food, we think about clothing, we think about fashion, housing styles. So all that kind of ties together, and the equation right there on the screen says culture. So language, like we mentioned earlier, along with religion and ethnicity, makes up a culture's mentifacts. It's the collection of beliefs and one that the values that people share. Now in Chapter 5, Key Issue 1, it's going to highlight the fact that where are English language speakers distributed? Remember, as geographers, we're looking at distribution across space. So the origin and diffusion of English. Now English today is a very popular language, spoken 380 million as a first language. Map on the screen right now. So again, the United States, English. We have the United Kingdom, Great Britain, parts through Africa, Australia, India. So a lot of what we see English as the official language is kind of left over from England in terms of the diffusion and even colonization right there. Now the English language became a distinct language in England as a result of westward Celtic migration, as well as Germanic and Norman invasions. Little map on the screen to take a look at. So modern English evolved mainly from the languages spoken by the German conquerors of Britain. So if we're talking about Britain right here, we have the Jutes, we have the Saxons, we have the Angles. Those are kind of the main three groups. And the word England actually comes from Angles land and changed with the arrival of the Normans in 1066. Now modern English emerged from mingling of French and Germanic. Alright, let's go ahead and transition. There's a quick little video clip I want to show you guys the history of English, kind of a tongue-in-cheek, gives us a little more in depth about the invasions and a little bit about the English diffusion. Here we go.
In 10 minutes. Chapter 1, Anglo-Saxon, or whatever happened to the Jutes. The English language begins with the phrase, "Up yours, Caesar," as the Romans leave Britain, and a lot of Germanic tribes start flooding in. Tribes such as the Angles and the Saxons, who together gave us the term Anglo-Saxon, and the Jutes, who didn't. The Romans left some very straight roads behind, but not much of their Latin language. The Anglo-Saxon vocab was much more useful, as it was mainly words for simple, everyday things, like house, woman, loaf, and werewolf. 4 of our days of the week were named in honor of Anglo-Saxon gods. They didn't bother with Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, as they'd all gone off for a long weekend. While they were away, Christian missionaries stole in, bringing with them leaflets about jumble sales and more Latin. Christianity was a hit with the locals and made them much happy to take on funky new words from Latin like martyr, bishop, and font. Along came the Vikings, with their action-man words like drag, ransack, thrust, and die. They may have raped and pillaged, but they were also into give and take. 2 of around 2,000 words they gave English, as well as the phrase, "Watch out for that man with the enormous axe." Chapter 2, The Norman Conquest, or Excuse My English. 1066. True to his name, William the Conqueror invades England, bringing new concepts from across the Channel like the French language, the Doomsday Book, and the duty-free Gauloise multipack. French was de rigueur for all official business, with words like judge, jury, evidence, and justice coming in and giving John Grisham's career a kick-start. Latin was still used ad nauseam in church, but the common man spoke English, able to communicate only by speaking more slowly and loudly until the others understood him. Words like cow, sheep, and swine come from the English-speaking farmers, while the à la carte versions, beef, mutton, and pork, come from the French-speaking toffs, beginning a long-running trend for restaurants having completely indecipherable menus. All in all, the English absorbed about 10,000 new words from the Normans, though they still couldn't grasp the rules of cheeky kissing. The bonhomie all ended when the English nation took their new warlike lingo of armies, navies and soldiers and began the 100 Years' War against France. It actually lasted 116 years, but by that point no one could count any higher in French, and English took over as the language of power. Chapter 3. Shakespeare, or a plaque on both his houses. As the dictionary tells us, about 2,000 new words and phrases were invented by William Shakespeare. He gave us handy words like eyeball, puppy dog and anchovy, and more show-offy words like dauntless, besmirch and lackluster. He came up with the word alligator, soon after he ran out of things to rhyme with crocodile. And a nation of tea drinkers finally took him to their hearts when he invented the hobnob. Shakespeare knew the power of catchphrases as well as biscuits. Without him, we'd never eat our flesh and blood out of house and home. We'd have to say good riddance to the green-eyed monster, and breaking the ice would be as dead as a doornail. If you tried to get your money's worth, you'd be given short shrift, and anyone who laid it on with a trowel could be hoisted with his own petard. Of course, it's possible other people used these words first, but the dictionary writers liked looking them up in Shakespeare because there was more cross-dressing and people poking each other's eyes out. Shakespeare's poetry showed the world that English was a rich, vibrant language with limitless expressive and emotional power, and he still had time to open all those tea rooms in Stratford. Chapter 4. The King James Bible, or Let There Be Light Reading. In 1611, the powers that be turned the world upside down with a labour of love, a new translation of the Bible. A team of scribes with the wisdom of Solomon went the extra mile to make King James' translation all things to all men, whether from their heart's desire to fight the good fight, or just for the filthy lucre. This sexy new Bible went from strength to strength, getting to the root of the matter in a language even the salt of the earth could understand. The writing wasn't on the wall, it was in handy little books, with fire and brimstone preachers reading it in every church. Its words and phrases took root to the ends of the earth, or at least the ends of Britain. The King James Bible is the book that taught us that a leopard can't change its spots, that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, that a wolf in sheep's clothing is harder to spot than you would imagine, and how annoying it is to have a fly in your ointment. In fact, just as Jonathan begat Meribal, and Meribal begat Micah, the King James Bible begat a whole glossary of metaphor and morality that still shapes the way English is spoken today. Amen. Chapter 5. The English of Science, or How to Speak with Gravity. Before the 17th century, scientists weren't really recognised, possibly because lab coats had yet to catch on. But suddenly Britain was full of physicists. There was Robert Hooke, Robert Boyle, and even some people not called Robert, like Isaac Newton. The Royal Society was formed out of the Invisible College, after they put it down somewhere and couldn't find it again. At first they worked in Latin. After sitting through Newton's story about the pomum falling to the terror from the arbor for the umpteenth time, the bright sparks realized they all spoke English, and they could transform our understanding of the universe much quicker by talking in their own language. But science was discovering things faster than they could name them. Words like acid, gravity, electricity, and pendulum had to be invented just to stop their meetings turning into an endless game of charades. Like teenage boys, the scientists suddenly became aware of the human body, coining new words like cardiac and tonsil, ovary and sternum. And the invention of penis and vagina made sex education classes a bit easier to follow, though clitoris was still a source of confusion. Chapter 6. English and Empire, or the sun never sets on the English language. With English making its name as the language of science, the Bible and Shakespeare, Britain decided to take it on tour, asking only for land, wealth, natural resources, total obedience to the crown, and a few local words in return. They went to the Caribbean looking for gold and a chance to really unwind, discovering the barbecue, the canoe, and a pretty good recipe for rum punch. They also brought back the word cannibal to make their trip sound more exciting. In India, there was something for everyone. Yoga to help you stay in shape while pretending to be spiritual. If that didn't work, there was the cummerbund to hide the paunch. And if you couldn't even make it up the stairs without turning crimson, they had the bungalow. Meanwhile, in Africa, they picked up words like voodoo and zombie, kicking off the teen horror film. From Australia, English took the words nugget, boomerang, and walkabout, and in fact the whole concept of chain pubs.
Alright, I'll pick it up right there. So on your screen right now, you have a map talking about the diffusion of English. So, again, like traits of material culture or artifacts, language diffused all over space. So if we're talking about the English language, and that video showing us kind of the fun history behind it, talking about the concept of relocation diffusion, especially with migration of its speakers. The British colonized all over the world and took their language with them to their colonies, of course. So in the Americas, we're talking about the 17th century, Ireland in the 17th century, South and Southeast Asia in the mid about 18th century, South Pacific in the late 18th and early 19th century, and even Africa in the late 19th century. All right, Chapter 5 also continues to define something known as dialects. Now, a dialect is a form of language that is unique in sound, speed, and syntax. So basically meaning it has its special grammar, spelling, vocabulary, pronunciation. Dialects can be difficult to understand depending on how far they've actually diverged or like moved away from the listener's speech. So dialects in the United States, if we went around the country, we have the Southern accent, or we think about the Cajun accent, or, you know, funny enough, you think about the Southern accent, so y'all come back now, you hear, fixing to get some iced tea sitting on the porch. But funny enough, if someone from the South comes to Southern California, they're also going to think we have a certain regional dialect. Thinking that we have, hey bro, let's go like surfing for sure. So looking back into more the difference between American and British English, if you talk to someone that grew up in England versus America, even though we're still speaking the same language, it sounds very different. Now, there are several reasons why the differences between American and British versions of English. Now, think about it. One of the main reasons is the distance between the two countries. We're talking about across the Atlantic, which caused the two versions of language to kind of evolve and grow and morph separately. The new words that were created in the new location to describe things were not exactly, you know, going on back in Great Britain. They weren't encountering those. So things like a canoe or like a chipmunk, which is like a new animal to the New World or the colonies or the Americas. So something like that wouldn't necessarily, the vocabulary would change. And then also another important event in regards to the development of American English came with the creation of the American Dictionary by Webster in around 1828. In Britain, for example, the word mom is spelled mum. And if you go over to London someday, you don't say, hey, where's the bathroom? You say, hey, where's the loo? If you wait for someone, you're not waiting in line for the movie tickets, you're waiting in a queue. You would take the lift up to your hotel room instead of using the elevator. And pants refers to underwear in many parts of the United Kingdom, whereas in America, the United States, it simply refers to clothes that you wear on your legs. Now, in the United Kingdom, Britain, there are different dialects. So, for example, I'm going to play a little clip right now for you musical theater lovers. It's taken from My Fair Lady, or Pygmalion. And in this little clip, Eliza Doolittle, which is the main character, played by Audrey Hepburn, demonstrates the Cockney accent in Eastern London. This section of London had been long considered kind of one of the poorer areas of the city, and therefore the accent had that kind of low status. If you talk this way, you must be, you know, one of those type of people. There are also the Scottish and Irish dialects too in Great Britain. So let's just go ahead and get a little taste in terms of the different dialects in My Fair Lady.
Oh, vowels.
I know my vowels. I knew them before I come.
If you know them, say them.
A-E-I-O-U.
A-E-I-O-U.
That's what I said. A-E-I-O-U. That's what I've been saying for 3 days, and I won't say them no more.
Right. All right, Eliza. Say it again.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
Didn't I say that?
No, Eliza, you didn't say that. You didn't even say that. Again, Eliza. How kind of you to let me come.
How kind of you to let me come.
Kind of you, kind of you, kind. How kind of you to let me come.
How kind of you to let me come.
No, kind of you, kind of you. It's like cup of tea, kind of you. Cup of tea. Say cup of tea.
Cup of tea.
No, a cup of tea. 4, 5, 6, marble. Now, I want you to read this, and I want you to enunciate every word, just as if the marbles were not in your mouth.
Well, that is more